Sig Slayers.
Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the comic signature show, period. I'm Mike the Sig Slayer, chilling with Mark the Honorable Villain. What up, fam?
What is up, Mike? I'm ecstatic.
Joining us today, we have popular cover artist and creator of Rise, Don Aguillo, joining us today. But before we chop it up with Don, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right. Our next guest is a brilliant artist and writer. You have seen his work on King Spawn, Killadelphia, Scorch, and on his creator-owned series Rise. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash Land, we bring to you Don Aguillo. What's up, fam?
Nice to meet you guys. Nice to be on here. I'm honored to be asked, of course. I'm just as starstruck. When I hear my credits like that, I'm like, oh my god, I did those things. That's really nice to hear. Appreciate it.
Well, hey, thank you. We appreciate it as well. We're going to dive right on in. So, Don, since it's your first time joining us, we'd like to get your comic book origin story. How did you get your first gig in pro comics?
First, I started with Rise. After a really long time doing cover work for Kickstarter projects, I decided maybe if I can't get into any of the big houses, maybe I'll just start my own creator-owned project. So me and a couple of my partners through IH Studios, we decided to get together, and like many creators out there, we decided to try our hand at creating our own comics, found our own printers, went through the humbling processes of figuring out who we were as artists and writers, and all the ups and downs that go with that. And then before you know it, Scout came across my work. It went across their desk, and they began publishing me. So that was sort of my first break into the industry, on top of continuing cover work. Yeah, since then, Instagram's been my business partner. So it sort of speaks for me when my head is down in the tablet. That's how Todd Mcfarlane came across me, and that's a whole different story. That's a different ballgame altogether. So,
well, let's go into that, Don. Tell us how you got work on the Spawn series, and how did Todd Mcfarlane contact you?
He is constantly looking on Instagram, on his own phone, on his own devices, looking for artists himself. On top of the busy schedule he already has, he actually sort of handpicks the people and reaches out himself. So he did that with me using his personal account. So when he got me on Instagram and said, "Hey, Don, how's it going?" in that really casual vernacular, and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a cover for the Spawn series?" And I'm getting this in my DM, so I'm like, yeah, that's not Todd. That can't be Todd Mcfarlane. So I was like, as casually as I could go without turning it down. I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'd be interested. Of course I am. Didn't think I'd get a response from it. I got an immediate response, and he was like, yeah, I'll have Thomas contact you. And I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I barely know if I can trust that you're Todd Mcfarlane. So
Thomas Healy.
Not a week later, Thomas Healy, our editor, he gets me on the phone. He goes, "Hi, this is Thomas Healy, Todd Mcfarlane Productions." I'm like, okay, the joke is getting more elaborate. And then he goes, yeah, so I have Todd on the phone. Todd, are you there? And he goes, "Hey, how's it going, Don?" And I'm like, holy, that's Todd Mcfarlane's voice. So I don't think anyone is as prepared as they want to be for that conversation. But just like a lot of the creators out there, they have really similar stories when they reach out to them, when he reaches out to them. So I think it's always sort of that suspended in disbelief that it's even happening. So he did a portfolio review with me on the spot. I imagine he was just walking around his property with his hand on, or with his phone up to his ear, and then he had me look at my own Instagram account, and he actually went line by line. These are the pieces I really like. These are the pieces that aren't really working for me. Here are the terms. I just want the character. I want the Spawn characters represented in a really cool modern way, and I really like your work. And I was like, this is amazing. This is crazy. I couldn't find the words to try and be cool at the same time as understand this is a new prospect in terms of my profession, on top of making sure he understands just how big a deal this was to me. And I'm pretty sure I said all the wrong things, but he still kept me on. So yeah.
Well, Don, I can see most of your work is done digitally. When did you migrate to the digital format within your workflow?
I did the biggest jump that you maybe could in the art world. I went from oil painting straight to tablet. I've never been a straight up penciler or inker. When my degree is in oil painting and drawing in college. When I graduated, I inherited a tablet. I don't remember where, but someone said, you got to try digital because, it takes up less space and it's not as expensive as oil painting. And I said, there can't be any future in this. It doesn't feel, I was holding the tablet in my hand. I'm like, this doesn't feel substantial. But I realized that the workflow was faster. I can do more things with it. I can fix mistakes faster and easier. So I learned faster with that medium about my own work and how it evolves. Whereas oil painting, you're throwing out canvases every week because that painting just isn't working for you, or you've put so much paint on you can't work with the thing anymore. But yeah, that was pretty early on in the career. It's like most artists I talk to now, it's self-taught on the tablet. I think that's why we have so much variation, because the school for tablet doesn't really exist. It exists out here, like in industry. And everyone is just sharing tips, and everyone is sharing tricks, and everyone is taking the tools of the trade, and they are using it in so many different ways that to wrap a school around that doesn't make any sense anymore. It's like a Wild West for digital work.
Wow, yeah, man, that's cool that you even raised that up, because I was going to ask you, where did you learn that? And you pretty much said everyone kind of figures it out on their own, and you meet in the middle when there's a question.
Yeah, and the world of YouTube and social media, the fact that I can ask someone who I've, whose work has been influencing my own for a greater part of a decade, I can DM them and ask them, hey, that thing you used for your last one, what brand is that? And they actually get back to me because, they get so many fans asking this and that. To have another person in the industry be like, I'm interested in your tools and mark making. For us, that's like, oh my gosh, that's art nerd talk. That's pretty much all I ever want to talk about, right? Because that's the next level education. So I've been able to pick the brains of a lot of my heroes, and we're in that age, and I hope it never dies.
Well, let's talk about Rise for a second, because I find it interesting that project was actually like your entryway into making comics. So you do it yourself, upstart comic book creator. But what inspired you to create Rise as far as the story itself?
Okay, it's a controversy among at least industry writers about whether or not you should use your storytelling as a form of therapy or not. For me personally, telling the Rise story, and hopefully continuing telling the Rise story, is a very cheap, very fun form of therapy, because I get to lay out all of my sort of personal demons out on the canvas and in the words. And, that could be, for a while, that was a learning curve as to whether or not I could be that vulnerable with people. But I think what's nice about our medium is that people will read it and make it about themselves. That's what makes the connection. It's not about me anymore, right? So I hope that's the case, because I'm still very much self-conscious about what I write and how I draw. So it's like it's a really vulnerable space to be able to say, hey, here's this thing that's really damaged about me. I'm gonna throw it out there and hope it resonates with you, and then we're not alone in it. And that was sort of the learning process of telling the story. But a lot of it is culturally, on top of personal psychology, a lot of it is culturally influenced. So you're going to see a lot of things in there that I'm exploring about being Filipino, being othered, being an immigrant. Well, I've been a citizen for a really long time now, but still feeling a bit of my immigrant background in every interaction I have. Even in the professional world, it's like I still feel like I'm just learning to fit in. Like that's sort of the common thread in a lot of the storytelling for Rise, and I hope that comes across, and hope it keeps coming across. On top of that, there are vampires and demons and all sorts of things that I fanboy about. time. That'll definitely.
Now let's talk about Killadelphia 33. That's the most recent issue of Killadelphia as we speak right now, and you are a variant cover artist on that. And I want to know who was the point person for that, because Killadelphia is also a creator-owned project. Was it Rodney Barnes, or was it the artist Jason Sean Alexander that got you tied in with Killadelphia?
It was Jason Sean Alexander. And let me tell you, this is where Instagram really, really helped me out, because he's one of the people that's like up there for me. He's not only in this industry, but I've been watching his work for a really long time. I met him in the con circuit, but he is an oil painter too, and so that sort of harkens back to my origins. So to watch how he kind of brings those worlds together is a really interesting landscape for me, because I'm like, what if I did that again? What if I take what I learned from comic making and storytelling and brought back some of the old tools that I used to use? And that's really exciting, but also really scary, because I haven't picked up a brush in a really long time. But Jason Sean Alexander's work, the emotion, the sort of the raw grittiness of his work, the darkness in his work, really, I was really drawn to. So I actually shot him a line on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I really love your work and all this, and I forgot how the conversation went, but he actually replied, and then it wasn't too big of a dialogue, but then he shot me a DM one day and was like, would you be interested in doing a cover for Killadelphia? And you can tell he's a really busy guy, because like that conversation went on for a while before he was like, okay, no, you're gonna do a cover for Killadelphia now. And I'm like, yes, sir. I'm gonna fall right in line. I would be honored to. And again, I was trying to keep my cool, but I couldn't do it. And I was like, I'm so excited. This is so much fun. I think you really liked the piece. So on top of that, Savage Dragon on that cover. I mean, that's right back where most of us started our comic fandom, right there in the 90s with the comics. So it was like a triple honor to be able to have all those things happen at the same time on this cover.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's gonna be on my wall for a while. I just gotta find the right spot.
Well, Don, you've been checking them off one by one. You've worked with the three major comic book publishers, DC, Marvel, and Image. What is your dream project?
Okay, let me clarify for a second. Marvel, I've only worked with on two fronts. But licensed work, so Upper Deck and Second Dinner with gaming and cards. I think I'm trying not to be typical, but I hear also from a lot of other interviews, it's like, I just want to work on the X-Men. Like that's where a lot of people just began. So I think I want to work on X-Men, if not something like TMNT or Gargoyles. So something that throws right into the 90s space. So TMNT, some TMNT property somewhere in there. Even if it was a non-turtle, somewhere in that universe would be really, really fun. But yeah, I know Gargoyles is back in a big way, and I watched that series over again, and
that show still has legs too, man. That show still stands today.
Yep, totally does. I understand more and more every time I rewatch it why it was canceled. It was way too smart for, I think, not too smart for its target audience. It was just a lot. It was heavy. It was like dense with content, mythology, and that's why the storytelling, I think, keeps giving. It's evergreen. Every time you watch it, you're like, oh, there's that Arthurian legend thing, or there's that Shakespearean thing, or oh my God, I just love Gargoyles. So, or New York City, like it has a different character every time I watch it. And now I collect the NECA figures, so they're sitting on my shelf, and I just do my own stories from time.
Last question. We know you're involved in a lot of exciting projects. Is there anything we haven't discussed that you would like to share with the Stash fam?
Yeah. Well, on top of continuing with Spawn, so I'm about to submit to a bunch of covers for the new series that are coming out. The Spawn universe has just expanded in 2024 into, I think, almost 10 new books.
Yeah.
So please check that out. I'm about to submit some covers for that, but I am going to be working on a horror anthology in 2024. That's weird talking about it because it's a personal project of mine. It's going to be a step back into sequential art, but more in the, for you millennials out there, scary stories to tell in the dark. Stephen Schwartz and Gamble. You guys remember that anthology from back in the 90s? There were 3 of those books. The way those images and stories still give me nightmares now, I want to do with my own sort of horror anthology take, but it's going to be drawing from ghost stories of Filipino Americans in the diaspora. So it's like talking about the ghosts we brought back or brought to the Americas from back home. It's going to talk about mythologies that were told from generation to generation, the ghost stories that persist today, the ghost stories melded in with sort of religious take on things. It's going to be another one that sort of investigates personal psychology and traumas and things like that. It sounds really light stuff, you know?
That sounds cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick that up for sure, man.
I hope so. It's going to be specifically Filipino American, but hopefully the themes that I'm working with are all about othering, fitting in, growing up, coming out, you know, all the kinds of things that really resonate with people today who sort of have trouble with identity and, you know, self-actualization, things like that. It's going to be a horror anthology. It's sort of where my heart lives. Let's just hope it's scary, because yeah, I need it. I need it to give someone else nightmares, you know?
Yeah. Is there a title for it?
I have a working title, but I've still got to workshop it. Just put my name. Okay, Project Untitled. But it will, if you follow me on social media, I will have some expiration on it in there, and I will have a title come hopefully April or May when I officially. Oh, it's hard. It's like a promise. When I officially announce the project and the research should be done.
Inside Scoop Hero Sig Slayers. Don, thank you so much for joining us. You always have a home here on the Sig Slayer station, so please come back, especially when you want to make that announcement formally. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Sig Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and Don Aguillo. We are out.
Sig Slayers.